Hello. I hope somebody is listening. This is a distress call from university. Not much time to talk, old sport. We have a pretty big problem on our hands. Do you remember the sinkholes I mentioned in my last call? Well, they're not showing any signs of stopping. The government isn't doing anything. In fact, I think they just announced an election to avoid addressing it. On the other hand, I can't tell if the agency was attempting to combat the sinkholes, but I think they were successfully distracted by the election, considering their goals overthrow the government and all. So what does that leave to deal with it then? Take a guess. I mentioned how I haven't truly been the heroic self that I used to be in a while. I thought what I used to do wasn't that big of a deal. Until I stopped. Suddenly my impact on the city has never been clearer. Ever since I stopped fighting, the monsters have evolved and adapted to their environment even further than before. I thought I must be too out of practice to fight these newly upgraded monsters, so, to train, if you will, I sought out as many cyborgs as I could find. I halved their population in one night. You know, as a warm-up, of course. It was essential for me to upgrade my current setup. In fact, I visited Nightcrawler's place, as it has since been abandoned. I could tell he was recruited when that telephone box no longer rang every night anymore. It stopped about a month ago. I borrowed his monitors, and found the notes he made when he discovered how to gain access to CCTV footage. It's only a temporary setup, of course, just until he comes back. Although personally I'm not counting on it, nor hoping it either. I just hope Thalia doesn't have to deal with him. Finally, with this equipment, I have been conducting night patrols just as he did, but better. So many of the cameras had already lost connection due to being swallowed by a sinkhole. Luckily none of them were near my current location, but at the speed they are growing I ought to keep an eye out my own window. There are two main sinkholes, sinkholes A and B, if you will. They are on completely two different sides of the city. Conveniently, these are placed away from the government's residence, where I believe the agency is based. However, they are smaller sinkholes. Ones that are just beginning, C, D, and E. Sinkholes C and D occupy two different corners of the city centre. They are small in size currently, but they are rapidly expanding. Sinkhole E is not yet formed. I formally investigated the city's busiest areas in concern of the clueless residents who continue to live their daily lives in the city, many of which have already fallen down sinkholes D and C. I noticed cracks in the concrete of the city's most infamous street. I thought back to the many times I have been there before, thinking it may just be the rampant crowds of the city leaving their mark. But no, these were new. If the sinkhole began to form, it would result in hundreds, possibly thousands of casualties. The only one who can fight this is me. You must know, old sport, that the sizes of these sinkholes never seem to increase during the day. If these were naturally occurring, what is the likelihood of all 5 sinkholes remaining the same in appearance during the day, without growing at all? Surely, particularly with all the movement the city experiences during the day, these would expand. I've been asking myself these questions over and over. Something wasn't adding up. I thought that the sinkholes were a new horror of the city. I thought this was something I would have to mend myself. Work during the night to patch them up and stop the hopeless city residents from falling in. It's the only fix I can think of. Because, well, how do you fix a natural disaster? You don't. It's just another thing the gracious creator of this universe gifted to us. Disaster. They don't work on a schedule. Even the gift of an almighty creator does not wait until everyone has evacuated. Nothing about the city is particularly natural in the first place, I suppose, but something, or someone, has to be behind this. So I've been watching. Every night I've been watching these sinkholes as I wait for them to make their move. The issue with watching CCTV camera footage of them, however, is how easy it is to hack into them. Moments before each sinkhole grows, the camera footage glitches and freezes for approximately 3 to 5 seconds at a time. By the time it blinks back to life, the sinkhole is expanded, and no one is in sight. But recently, they messed up. I was watching the camera fixed on Sinkhole C, one of the smaller ones in the city's busy centre, when it warped again, freezing and glitching, so I knew it was time. When the camera blinked back on, I quickly scrambled to pause the footage. In the corner of the frame, a black hooded figure was walking away. They seemed to have some sort of tool in hand, a shovel or a hammer perhaps, to create the new damage to the sinkhole. But as I squinted at the screen, I realised there was something more. Some sort of symbol resembling a logo resided on the mysterious figure's back. At that moment I sat back in shock, and in my quick movements I accidentally pressed the play button. I jumped once again as the hooded figure, once thought to be moving out of frame, stopped, and turned its head right towards the camera. A shadow was cast over the figure's face. I could not tell if they were wearing a mask to conceal their identity, or if the shadows were one with them. As they met my gaze through the camera, the footage then cut to black. There was no way for me to gain access to that footage anymore. The camera had been broken. The only way for me to learn more was to see it for myself, I suppose. This is something possibly beyond my willpower. It's the first time in a long time I have done something this significant and hard. It's hard, and I'm struggling. I can admit that. I don't know how I'm going to do this myself. Old sport. It's not my first time ever doing something as hard as this, I guess. But with the rapid increase of danger in the city, it feels like it. It's not often that I feel the pressures of the city weighing on me anymore. I suppose I did say that it is once impossible to survive in the city alone. But, old sport, I'm going to have to try. It's been hard to navigate being scared since you left February. You were my compass, my way home, always. It feels so long ago now that I was last comforted by you, guided by you. Comfort solely by thoughts only goes so far. My imagination really is only so vast in the city. Sometimes it feels like the city may not monitor the radio, but it's in my head, my ears, my thoughts, my dreams, my shoes. I cannot live in a fantasy with you, February, without the city barging through, reminding me of my reality. The reality of the cold, fast, alone city. How can I truly brave this world when it is only when you are near me that I am not afraid? I can recall so little of time before the city, yet I remember so much of my time spent with you. You comforted me through the dark, like when I shivered under the covers as the shadows took over. You were there too. You were always there. We were both barely hanging on. We felt so big trying to share the space, but truly, looking back, we were so little back then. We bickered about the cold every so often, yet we were peaceful. I knew I was safe because you were there. Yet, I do not know where you are anymore, February. Do you still see me? Do you ever see me? Or did the shadows take you